My name is Sam. My artist name is Blackson. Originally from Philadelphia. That's where I live and reside. He, him pronouns. What I do, I'm a producer,
Mhm.
but more so a musician. I play guitar, bass, drums, and piano. I think I picked up the guitar the first time when I was like 7. I was like, oh, let me
Yeah.
just try this out because my dad was like really into playing guitar. He got me it and took lessons for a little bit, piano lessons. But then I kind of transitioned into like jazz and more like experimental kind of
Improvisation.
yeah,
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So yeah, kind of focusing on that and just trying to
Mhm.
build my own type of, I guess, comfortability with like playing outside the scales and the lines of everybody else.
Mhm.
A lot of my work is outside of music, primarily
Mhm.
just as like a community activist in Philadelphia,
Mhm.
core member of a social justice and education organization called Philadelphia Children's Movement. Y'all can follow us on IG and Facebook. You know we hold it down.
Nice. Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
we do so much cool shit in schools with parents, students, even teachers, administration, just trying to really raise awareness and kind of introduce people to their biases and prejudices surrounding education and how like you
Mm.
can be more productive for all different types of learning.
And I didn't know about that about you. So, like, how did you get involved with like community organizing? And like, how long have you been doing that? And I guess what have you sort of learned from people in this like world? Because it's something that not a lot of people are involved with their communities like that. So.
What I'd like to say is I did it before the clout. Um, I feel like everybody now is kind of doing it as more of a performance. Um,
Mhm.
or so as when I began, it was 2015.
Mhm.
An organization was founded. There was that time in the summer where it was like maybe a span of like 4 months where you had like I think it was the Mike Brown verdict and the Eric
Mhm.
Gardner, or maybe it was the Mike Brown murder, police assassination, on top of a lot of other things, and it really was
Yeah.
like the beginnings of like that boiling point
Yeah.
uh,
Mhm.
for a lot of folk, and it hit me hard because I was introduced to police brutality at a young age in my
Mhm.
hometown with one of my best friends. We were walking home from like one of those homecoming dances, if you remember those
Mhm.
days in high school.
Mhm.
um, but I realized immediately the power that I held as a person
Mhm.
without using my voice and like the fear
Yeah.
that I bestowed upon people.
Mhm.
I mean, you can't see in the video, but I'm 6'5", so it's not like I'm
Really?
yeah. So I'm in
I
it,
didn't know that.
but yeah. So I always after like my first I guess experience with police brutality, I was able to really focus on how people kind of interacted with me in their spaces. And by
Mhm.
their space, I mean every place that's outside of my home was
Mm.
somebody else's space, whether it be the government, whether it be school, whether it be someone else's house, like I'm going to my friend's house for dinner or something
Mhm.
like that. And I was really cognizant of that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and knowing kind of how people perceive me and
Mhm.
um, changing my ways because of that. It was, I think, W.E.B. Du Bois said something like, in the souls of Black folk, he calls it the veil. So it's like Black people
Mm.
veil when they go around because you have this idea of like double consciousness.
Yeah, yeah. Like code switching too.
Yeah, like
Mhm.
how people perceive you, and then that kind of manifests through your actions and
Yeah.
certain
Mhm. And into how you perceive yourself too.
exactly.
Yeah.
To actually answer the question, I
Mhm.
started in high school when I realized that racism was not only on the curriculum, but just
Mhm.
swept under the rug every point. So I started in high school really. I co-founded the BSU, led
Mhm.
an entire facilitation day called Day of Understanding, which
Mhm.
unfortunately is the whitest name ever, but what you're given. From there, it was more of a mockery. Kids were like,
Mhm.
"Fuck are you doing?" And
Mhm.
for example, when Eric Garner was murdered, I had a "I Can't Breathe" sweatshirt, and kids
Mhm.
walk up and down the block with like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
making choke sounds. I'm like, okay,
Yeah, damn.
where I'm at now. So I decided that school was probably not the best environment for me to excel
Mm.
around. Um,
Mhm.
so I took to the streets, organizing
Mhm.
marches with especially children, because I guess then
Mhm.
it was a lot harder to really have open, honest conversations with adults,
Right.
if they're black, brown, white,
Mhm.
whatever. It was almost like race was still an extremely uncomfortable topic
Mhm.
because they had like kind of like what I like to call the Barack Obama syndrome, where
Yeah, 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 like
like, yeah,
post-race America, yeah.
exactly. But yeah, I mean, it's been a struggle. I would say
Mhm.
academic work is the most demoralizing, but also like yeah, probably some of the most demoralizing work, tiresome
Mhm.
work. But at the end of the day, it's the one that I would do over anything.
Right.
I don't get paid for it. I
Mhm.
don't, but it's just like there's like something within me, I guess, where
Yeah. Mhm. Like,
to this place of privilege, I have
mhm.
things going against or going with me or
Mhm.
for me, and I have things against me, obviously. But if I can do everything in my power to make maybe the life of another black boy growing up just a little
Mhm.
bit, I will do it.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you feel like things have changed from high school to being in college, especially at like a primarily white institution, and then with the pandemic and social media? Like, how do you feel like people's views on things have changed or haven't?
Well, I've always been in a leadership position, regardless of
Mhm.
the institution. NYU has allowed me to be on all levels of leadership. So I began freshman year as a diversity liaison for the student council.
Mhm.
For Gallatin, it was my first experience with like the empirical politics of NYU,
Mhm.
specifically how they really perceive black students and students of color is something that they will probably never tell them,
Mhm.
but just the conversations being held with admin and deans,
Mhm.
very interesting. But I came to NYU during a time of quote unquote great change in their mind.
Mhm.
It was right after the Brown and Black Coalition's list of demands, and they were slowly making some of those demands. And the one that I was focusing primarily on was this climate survey. They called it the Being at NYU survey. The goal was to get 33% of the entire faculty, staff, and student body. So that's even the janitors or the kitchen staff,
Mhm.
like the people doing admissions. Um,
Mhm.
and that was when I realized the student body's perspective, because getting people to do things is extremely difficult, but getting somebody to fill out a survey about racial, gender, like equity,
Mhm.
things that nobody wants to do if they're studying business and Stern and just trying to finish their degree. They
Right.
don't want to deal with that. It was difficult, but we ended up getting the results publicly released and everything. They're
Mhm.
available if you want to watch it. There's a whole video posted,
Ooh.
and then nothing has been spoken of or done really
Mm.
ever since,
Mhm.
which is fine. But it's just like no matter what part of leadership I was in student government, my sophomore year as a alternate senator at large,
Mhm.
my voice was not silenced, but like
Sort of squashed.
yeah, it was interesting kind of dynamics of just the group in general because all of them kind of knew each other from doing it before. And I
Mm.
was like, is this a friend group or are we trying to do something?
Right.
He didn't really like that, I guess, attitude that I possessed. Um,
Mhm.
then I was a treasurer for Gallatin Student Council. Now I'm the vice president. My
Mhm.
senior year, I'm just kind of gassed. We got a black president, a black vice president.
Nice.
Just kind of cool. I would say the one thing that I've noticed most that has changed,
Mhm.
just the reception.
Mhm.
Or if I was to explain my concentration, because I knew what I was going to study freshman year going into it. I knew that
Mhm.
I was in Gallatin to actually study what I want, um, and really just study myself
Mhm.
primarily. I entitled it The Rhythms of Freedom, so it's combining activism, Black studies, music production, and
Ooh,
sound design, basically.
that's cool. Mhm.
Yeah, but whenever I explained it, I
Mhm.
guess people would be like, "Yo, what the fuck are you doing? Like, what
Mhm.
is that? Like, how
Mhm.
are you gonna do that? What is like, what classes are you gonna take, or whatever this is?"
Right.
Yeah, I just feel like now it's more of like, "Oh, that's so cool. Wow."
Mhm.
Which
Yeah, yeah, but before it was sort of like, "What is that? Like, what can you do with that? Is that worth it?" sort of thing.
yeah, and now it seems like I get applauded, which I don't like.
Right. Hmm.
Like I've got awards during high school from Princeton for race relations. Like, okay, that's cool. I appreciate it, but like I'm not here for the award.
Right.
Um, and it's just like a weird kind of space right now.
Mm.
Because the title activist is something that I hold, but my definition is seemingly different than what the public's definition is, or
Hmm.
what claim to be.
Hmm. And
Um,
how would you define it for yourself? Activism.
for me specifically,
Hmm.
in the place that I'm in, I'll just give a background on myself. One, I have
Yeah,
three
yeah.
siblings. Um, I have a single mom right now. She divorced my father. I'm adopted, so my parents do not look like me. Neither do
Hmm.
two of my siblings.
Hmm.
Um, so I always wanted to set the standard. Like if y'all gonna be a white family and
Hmm.
have two black children, y'all gonna have to put basically the money where the mouth, or like
Hmm.
whatever that saying is. Like you gotta do
Yeah,
something
yeah.
with what you got.
Hmm.
Living in Philadelphia, another city really deep,
Hmm.
enriched with this kind of activist kind of heritage, Underground Railroad, like even back to like Revolutionary War. Like, but I just think an activist is more somebody that does something. They don't do it to feel better about themselves.
Hmm.
It's not like a
Like a selfless sort of thing.
yeah. It's like I realized the problem,
Hmm.
realized the issue at hand, and I'm going to do my part.
Hmm.
It could
Hmm.
be anything. If it's these days it could be sharing a post on Instagram.
Hmm.
Other times it might be attending a protest, giving money,
Hmm.
educating your family and friends when you can. That's
Right.
what being activist is. Because if you're not active in doing something, you're passive. So if
Hmm.
you slide, if your mom says a comment at the dinner table where your uncle is being racist, and you don't say,
Hmm.
wake the fuck up. Like,
Yeah.
one, you can't be saying that.
Hmm.
Um, or even if it's your homies, like I check my friends all the time.
Hmm.
Don't do it out of disrespect. I just do it because when it clicks in my head, that's not good.
Right.
Yeah, I appreciate you talking to me about this generally because I don't know, we've never like talked about things like this, but it's nice to have like a perspective. I don't know, because we're all in our bubbles, you know. Um, I guess how do you feel like being in college? Like this is like your senior year, right? Like in terms of academics, like what you've learned and how that's applied to like your view of the world or even like your music. Because like for me, like being a film student, like learning about like black artists of all kinds or like black filmmakers or like international film, just like that sort of like learning about things outside of like whiteness definitely influences like everything I want to do, like film writing, like all that kind of stuff. So how do you feel like that's influenced you artistically or like personally?
Coming into NYU, I didn't think that I was going to be a music producer per se. I always did it as like a hobby, like a side thing, like oh whatever.
Hmm.
NYU facilitated that dream, of course. But my main reason to go to NYU was because of Gallatin and
Hmm.
the ability for me to individualize my studies. So I really knew coming out of high school that I didn't know shit.
Hmm.
I'm an extremely predominantly white institution. Like
Hmm.
I'm talking vineyard vines, like out the like
Yeah.
look yeah look looking like a brochure to like a golf course.
Right.
But yeah, there's huge gaps, and this stems from public institutions to private institutions and all in between. There's major
Yeah.
gaps in history that aren't in these textbooks
Hmm.
because why would they be in these textbooks? And even if they're in the textbooks, they're told incorrectly to make it
Right. To make
less.
it, yeah, to make like white people comfortable.
Exactly. Or a good
Hmm.
example is they make the photographs in the civil rights movement black and white.
Mm.
But when you look
Yeah.
back at the history of cameras, they
They
had
were around in color. Hmm.
so it's like interesting,
Mm.
very interesting. But I
Hmm.
think music studies showed me just how influential black people are
Mm.
from the beginning,
Hmm.
stepping onto this earth, being enslaved, creating songs that to this day are reused in portions
Hmm.
of things. Just the ability to express their voice and their sound and their feeling through music to
Mhm.
the point of which other folk could not do it. Like
Mhm.
one of the most interesting things I learned in one of my classes was back in the day they would have like radio performances. And they would literally put black artists at the station for the radio, like the white dude singing it,
Mhm.
but they wouldn't give credit to any of the black musicians.
Mm.
They would say it was a recording done by other people
Mhm.
just because the rhythm or whatever they're playing didn't sound as good or crisp or wasn't as authentic.
Right.
That was like jazz and all of that. And seeing
Mhm.
that was what really empowered me to become more of a music producer was like, yo, like this shit is in my blood.
Mhm.
Even talking about films, like I went to
Mhm.
NYULA in the fall of 2019.
Mhm.
I'm not a film guy because I knew how the film
Mhm.
industry was, like a bunch of white people calling the shots. And then I realized that there's like pockets of the industry where it's like black people making some fire ass film.
Yeah. Mhm.
People just do it differently from like
Mhm.
photography too. Like seeing the
Yeah.
world through a black person's lens, hearing the world through a black person's voice, all of this
Mhm.
is so different because we have this like oppression
Yeah.
of that
There's
boiling.
mhm.
Like, do we
There's a
address?
flavor.
Yeah, there's a
Mhm.
flavor. That shit is seasoned.
Mhm.
Exactly. And that's just what
Mhm.
and that's really what NYU exposed me to. But at
Mhm.
the end of the day, I exposed myself to that.
Right.
I don't
Mhm.
get any credit to NYU because I picked the classes. I
Mhm.
don't get any credit to the white folk at NYU because I genuinely did not have a white professor for like 6 semesters.
Mm, shit, damn.
And the only yeah, I like came to I remember writing my application, and there's a
Mhm.
portion of like, because they do like an interesting system where you have to have an advisor before you actually register. They're like, what would you prefer for your registration advisor to be? I literally was like, I will
Oh,
reduce
really?
my enrollment if I do not have a black academic advisor and a black
Wow.
registration advisor.
Mhm.
They're like,
That's nice.
gave me two black people and it saved.
At Pratt, our advisors are done like alphabetically. But I'm like I spend like a lot of time like picking my schedule, because like I know like what I want. Like I don't want to let anyone else like pick it for me, and like I know the things that I want to learn, and like I always love like researching my professors, um, and like having like women or like black professors. Like I find them because I know that I like appreciate the class even more. But it's hard. Like there's very few options in terms of like culture, like pop culture now. It's all like basically black culture, like African American, like vernacular, like ebonics, like in terms of language, and then also in terms of like media, like TikTok or like Instagram or like Twitter. Like, how do you feel about that in terms of like appropriation and sort of I don't know that whole sort of I don't know anything that comes to mind, especially with music too, like hip hop, which is very yeah.
So hip hop is the number one genre, surpassing rock. Um, the majority of hip hop listeners are obviously white, just based on
Yeah,
demographic.
based on. Mhm.
So that in its own realm gives it some interesting things where you have black people performing for these white fans, saying these derogatory things about other black people, primarily black women or women.
Mhm.
And then you have stereotypes just being tossed around.
Mhm.
We all do drugs, we all shoot people. I'm the shit, you're not.
Mhm.
Really toxic masculinity. Just if you go around every day listening to Marvin Gaye, you're
Mhm.
be happier than if you go around every day.
Right.
There's some hard trap nigga talk about rap bitches, I fuck hoes, I get money. And then the positive rappers or conscious rappers get hated up for it. Like,
Mhm.
I'm trying to listen to that shit. It's like, okay, where did rap come from? Where did hip hop really start? And then you have this whole other realm of these content creators where it's like
Mhm.
they're doing a little dance because there's a really fine line between
Mhm.
appropriation and appreciation. Whereas, yeah, I can go on TikTok and use AAVE, but that's not authentically me. I could do
Right.
I'm a savage dance. It's like blending the lines. And it's
Mhm.
complicated because you also have black creators who are using their voices for good and doing that.
Mhm. But they're not getting like half the amount of attention as like their white counterparts who are just like mimicking.
And I know for a fact that Black people just never gonna get the credit that we deserve for
Hmm.
influence that we truly have on the American quote unquote culture. Because at
Hmm.
the end of the day, white people in America, they don't got no culture. They just don't.
Yeah,
Because America doesn't have anything because they wiped it all out. And now we're
right. Everything's stolen.
exactly.
Yeah,
So it's interesting. And then I think about it, it's like for music, everything is also kind of stolen, remixed, whatever you want to call
right.
it. Every note
Hmm.
has been played before, every bar has been said in a different way. There isn't really that much variance or difference. Yeah, you can change your flow, whatever. You can change the melody, whatever. And I always think further down the line and like use history as an example. And I think of Black minstrelsy, uh, where you had Black folk put on blackface and entertain
Hmm.
white folk by
Right.
jokes about
Hmm.
whatever watermelons or big lips or talking in a different way,
Hmm.
changing the way their hair looks. One of the most famous ones is Burt Williams. You have his face plastered up there, similar to the Drake ad that he did for a clothing brand with minstrelsy, where blackface, big red lips, stuff like that.
Hmm.
And I look at modern day rappers, and I can pinpoint a few that are doing the same thing. Y'all want to entertain a certain population, and you know what? Get your coin. But then when they're speaking on issues related to the black community, one, they don't
Hmm.
know what the fuck they're talking about,
Right.
which I think is problematic if you're gonna be a figurehead. People are
Hmm.
seeing you. Some of these people don't see black people.
Yeah, but they see
They,
you.
they see you in a music video or you in a
Hmm.
movie acting this way, saying these things.
Right.
That's their stereotype. And then they see you in an interview. And are you making sense? Are you using
Right.
the platform to your advantage?
Hmm.
There are people that are doing it now, I guess. It's like you,
Yeah, race and class are like not like they can be linked, but like in terms of celebrities, like there's a difference. I don't feel like a lot of rich people are like they can speak on, black people as a whole because they're in like a small percentage, of like people with that kind of money and privilege and all that sort of thing. So,
it's hard to articulate when it's like frustrating how people are. But you said how it relates to music.
mhm,
Big thing for me is that I want to make music that is genuinely like doing something.
mhm,
I don't want to put out music where it's like the same shit. I want to make it like more positive because I know Philadelphia rappers, they are really negative in their raps.
mhm,
And I can see it in the community. What if people were more positive? How would that? No one does that. No one thinks it's cool to
mhm,
rap respectfully. A good example is he's a GFM artist is Chase, Archduke Redcat.
mhm,
Into his full discography, this man
mhm,
does first.
mhm,
Like that alone is just that easy. He doesn't care.
mhm,
It says real stuff and does his own thing.
mhm.
And it's just like if individuals maybe adopted a mindset where it's like, oh,
Right. Like it needs to be like intrinsic. Mhm,
I can see how my music relates or doesn't relate to certain folk. But at the end of the day, that's never gonna happen for Migos or Future
mhm,
or
mhm.
even Drake.
Right.
Still gonna do what they need to do to
Mhm.
get bread, to get their
Right.
stream.
Mhm.
The next generation artists, you don't gotta do that. And that's why I like film. It's like if I was good with the camera,
Mm.
I would go crazy.
Yeah, I just put out a bunch of like lists of like black like movies and things on Kickback. Um, so there's like lots of things that like I need to watch too, but I think like art I just want to like surround myself with like black art. Like that's like something that I like consciously and like actively want to do, and then it's hard to do also because it's like I sort of have to like dig and like find that kind of thing. But yeah, also when you were talking, I was thinking about like when I made Kickback, it's like I just wanted to like I didn't want to ask anyone for permission. I just wanted to like do what I wanted to do and like put my friends on and like share all of our things without like a higher power to sort of like let me do that. So, in terms of like GFM and like the music industry, I guess how would you I don't know, like where do you see yourself in like the industry, or even like personally with your own music and like the people that you know, like how are you sort of, I don't know, like what, like I guess what are your goals for that, or like for others in terms of like lifting people up?
Yeah, I mean, the music
Mhm,
industry is extremely exploitative of like young black artists. Um,
mhm,
that being said, I don't want to be affiliated with any label type culture. Um,
mhm,
that's like extremely toxic. The whole advanced thing, royalties, all of that, like not my wavelength. I will say the stuff that I'm doing as a part of good fucking music is really, I guess, the only route that I see myself in the music industry,
mhm.
basing everything off of just genuine community and building talent through other folk. There's so many talented artists out there that aren't getting any bread or
Mhm.
recognition. And I'm sitting here listening to these songs like,
And they're fire.
y'all
They're
better,
like really good.
y'all saying better shit.
Hmm.
All of these niggas that are making millions. And the industry is just gatekept by
Right.
these stereotypes that are deeply like really just like traumatic stereotypes.
Yeah.
Folk,
Especially with film too. I think about that a lot too.
film especially. Like I'm tired of not
Yeah.
respectful, but I'm tired
But
of
like
seeing
slave movies, yeah. Or like civil rights.
like
It's
when was
like, yeah.
I think this past 2, 3 years, I've
Mhm.
seen some of the best black films, and it was like actual like I'm about to expose myself, but whatever. Like I'm a romantic type boy, so like
I was
see
just thinking about like the photograph.
exactly like black
Hmm.
love stories, like even Queen and Slim,
Hmm.
Photograph, like where are because it's there. It's a
Yeah.
story that has happened before, but it hasn't been told on that type of screen.
Right. And like with that much like attention and like recognition or like awards.
Exactly. I just want people to put shit out.
Hmm.
Music and anything. If you're a black artist, like you already at a different level. Just
Hmm.
deciding to be a black artist just because you're doing your thing. Like it's hard being an artist in general, but you got twice the burden as a black artist because you got to move around in spaces.
That weren't made for you.
I guess do you want to talk about your projects, like past projects, if you have any favorite ones, if you're working on anything now or will be in the future?
So yeah, my homie just dropped an album. It's static. It's called Baby Blue Cutlass. I was able to make 4 of those beats and mix and mastered. Well, actually, it was mastered by
Nice.
my homie Sloan. Yeah, it's a good project. That was just a GFM kind of collab project. Got some
Hmm.
folks, Ireland folks from Miami on there.
Hmm.
Um, it was like a nice virtual kind of thing. I was able to like
Hmm.
do that because usually I'm working in studios or seeing people in person. But I'm
Hmm.
up next. I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready for it yet. I got some fire artists on deck. Fuck it, I'll just say what I'm trying to do. I'm
Got
trying
it.
to
Got it.
get like a mixtape together of Philadelphia artists.
Hmm.
Um, but I want to push the artists to speak on something that isn't what they normally would. I want to
Hmm.
put them to like talk more about that real shit, speak more from their heart, less from the eyes of the audience.
Hmm.
So I want you to step out of the comfort zone of talking about what you would normally do, enter a different realm. Yo, I would just say if anybody's watching this shit, hopefully people are watching this shit.
Hmm.
That bro, live life without all that negativity that you put onto yourself. Like regardless of the situation, if you in quarantine or away from your friends, try to find that positivity somewhere and get the momentum rolling. Right now, to be honest, is a
Hmm.
terrible time to be depressed. And people are struggling and they're down bad. But like real shit, you can put my number in this chat, whatever it is. Hit my line if y'all need anybody to talk to, because people out here struggling. Exactly like this interview. Bring the max of kind and kickback. Kickback for real. Y'all doing it.
Thank you. Thank you. Trying people. Like, even though like the algorithm's like fucked and like, people don't really see posts and things like that, like I still like want to do it. Um, and like share like all my friends because like everyone's so cool. Um, so I just want everyone's like voices and stories to be heard because I don't know, it's like why wait for like the news or like a talk show host to to talk to all of my like amazing friends when I can just do it.
Exactly.
And then boom,
This is an
it's on
interview.
YouTube.
I like this
Huh.
interview. Questions were
Oh
cool.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
This
thank you so much for talking with me.
interview was like friendship.